Yeah, so we're going to continue with this application that we started in one of our classes that we've had in the past. So we've designed the HTML page. The only thing that we need to work on now is the styling for this top section, which is the form part, which is going to be like this. And at the same time too, we are going to take care of the error UI. We've designed all the necessary HTML that we need in order for us to have this thing on the page. The only thing that we need to do right now is to add our CSS, and after that we add our JavaScript, which is going to undo um, the conversion for us based on whatever the user inserted inside the box. So let's quickly finish with the design, and after that we can now jump into the JavaScript parts. And as you can see, for the desktop design, we have this interface where this button is by the right hand side, but on the mobile screen it is at the center of this line. And we've already undone that from the HTML part. The only thing we need to do is to apply the CSS that will make it to look like this. So in our HTML, we have this form. Inside the form, we have two sections. The first section is where we have this day, month, and year. While the second section is where we have this button and this line. Because you can see that they are on a separate line, so that's why we created these two sections. The first one to hold the day, month, and year. The second section, which is the one that is here, which is holding the HR, which is that line, and we have the button, which we are going to place at the correct position through the CSS there, like that. And what do we want to do? This is what we want to achieve. But currently, this is what we have, and we need to make sure our design looks like what we have in the design there. So we're going to continue from the CSS there by targeting the form. So we want to target our form. And what is the form here? Let me give you background color of blue. You see that it's going to select everything that we have at this area here. So blue, as you can see, this is the form. Is the one that is holding everything that we have inside this box. And what we just need to do is to display it as flex so that we can give a gap in between the two sections. And we need to change the direction to fxdc, which is going to give us the flex direction of column. I'm going to give it a gap of around this 1 rem so that it can space the two sections that we have inside the form. So we have form, we display it as flex, we move these two sections on top of each other, and we're giving a gap of 1 rem in between them so that we're going to have a space in between the section that is holding this content at the top and the one that we have down here. I don't need this blue background, it's just for us to see what is going on. And as you can see, we have a little gap in between this line and the content at the top, which is going to be more than that. So let me increase the gap. I think let me use 2 rem because I want more space in between the content. As you can see, now we have enough space at the top here. So now we have enough space at this side. So the next thing we need to do is to style this our box here, because they are supposed to be side by side. According to the design, they are supposed to be side by side based on the design that we have inside the file. So this is our file, or this is the design that we are following. And as you can see here, the day, the month, and the year supposed to be side by side. But currently, we don't have it like that. They are stacked on top of each other. So what can we do? We just need to style our section, which is having these form groups. So this section that we call form groups is the one that is holding the group for the day, the month, and the year. And you know how to put things side by side. So we just need to target it, form groups, display it as flex, which is going to put them side by side by default, so we don't need to use any direction. The only thing we can do here is to use gap maybe of around this 0.5, which is 8 pixels, which is going to be the space in between each one of the box. And as you can see right now, they are placed side by side. But there is a problem on mobile. The input is actually taking a lot of space that we don't want it to take. If I go to a bigger screen, here, let me remove this. We have this box which is going outside. But why is it going outside like this? Is because of the silly setting that the browser is using for our input. But we are going to handle that one later on there. So let's continue with the styling on the page. So the next group that we have there inside this our form groups is the form group without S. The one without S is the one that is holding only this day and month a year. So this is the form group, while everything together is what is called these form groups. So form groups is the one that is wrapping everything, while the one inside is the form group without S. So the one inside without S, that is the form group, while the one outside that have S, that's the one that is grouping the day, the month, and the year together. So we need to target this form group, and at the same time the input that is inside it, we want to reduce the space that is there so that the input is not going to be going outside like this, because the browser is applying silly width on that input, which is more than the box that we have. So we need to style them. So going back into this our CSS, targeting the form group, the one without X, we need to display it as flex. But if you display it as flex, the direction is going to be row, which is going to put the label, the input, and the error message side by side. This is not what we want. So we need to change the direction back to the column, and from there we can apply any gap that needs to be there. For example, I want this thing to have a gap of 0.25 rem like this, which is 4 pixels. So the day, the box, and the error message, they are going to be stacked on top of each other, and the spacing in between them is going to be this gap of 0.25. And as you can see, we have them. But this our input, it's still not being worked on, so we can target our form group. The input that is there, we want the weight to be a specific width, which is going to be 100%. So the width of the box, which is the input, should not go more than its parent. So whatever the parent is having there, that's what is going to use as the width. For example, here now, given this box background color of red, you see that the input is actually going outside of the, like, it's kind of like getting more than what I don't want it to have there. But that's not what I want. I want these things to have a weight of 100%. And here now, the input is going to maintain whatever the weight of the form group, and from there everything is going to size inside their box. By default, the browser is applying some default width on your box, which is the input. If you don't give the input any width, by default the browser will decide the weight for that your box, and that's what is happening here, that the box is now getting wide more than what we want for this box. So in order for us to have what we want, we need to specify the weight of the box, which is the input here, and we're giving it 100%, which means wherever this form group is taking as the weight, you too use the same thing, because weight is always based on the parent, or the percentage is based on the parent. So we are calculating the width of this input based on whatever the parent have. So if the parent is 200 pixels, then you too 200. If the parent is 10 pixels, then you too you maintain 10 pixels, and so forth like that. And that's the reason why you see that our box now is now being sized correctly. So whether you're on a big screen or small screen, it's always going to expand according to the parent. So we don't need to talk to it that, okay, expand when the parent expand. No, because we are using percentage. So if the parent reduce, the input will reduce. If the parent increase, the input too will get increase there like that. So the other thing we just need to do now is to apply the, as you can see the box, we have the padding inside it. The line, if you look at the edge of it, there is a border radius going on there like that. So we need to put all this styling in place. So I'm going to use border 1 pixels solid gray, but this is not the gray that is using. So let me go up. We have our color set up here. We already have our color set up. So I'm going to use this light gray in place of this one. So I'm going to use this var, then the light gray like this. So save. I'm going back to the page. As you can see, we have the styling. The next thing we need to apply is the padding. So we need to apply padding, which I'm going to be using 0.5. So 8 pixels around the box. So 8 pixels around the box. As you can see here, we have enough space. The other thing we need to apply is the radius around the box. So I'm going to use 0.5 too for that, which is going to give us this round edge that we have. So don't let us forget, we have this label there too that we jump, but because of the styling of the box so that we can see everything at once, that's why we jump into the input. So we need to style our label too. And I'm going to go up here by targeting the label that is there. So the color on the label, if you look at it, the color is this, and at the same time, when there is error later on, the color is going to change. The same thing with the box too. But for now, we're only going to focus on this color. But later on, we come back here and apply the color for when there is error. But for now, we're only going to target, or we can actually do it there by creating the class that we need on each one of them, and we style them through JavaScript. Later on, it will be doing the necessary toggling of the classes that needs to be on the element based on what is going on with the input. But for now, let's style it in this way. So first of all, if you look at all the text, they are in uppercase, but the one we have on the page is not like that. You know that we can apply this indirectly from CSS by using the CSS property, which is the text transform there, which is what we can use to transform our text from lowercase to uppercase, uppercase to lowercase, and so forth like that. But we need uppercase here so that all the text, they are always in capital letter. Whether you type it like that from the HTML or not, it will always maintain this capital letter. So the other thing we need to apply is the color. I don't know the color, so let me scroll up and check our color code. I think it is off black. So it's going to be var. So color is going to be var, then of black that we have up there. And once this thing is done and saved, we'll see that we have the color. Again too, we need to change the font weight, because the stuff that I'm seeing here using around that 500 or so, we should have something like that too on our, I don't think we have 500. Let me check our font. Oh, we don't have 500, we only have 700. So we can't use 500, it will not work. So let me change it to 700, and as you can see now, we have this thing coming out the way it's supposed to be. But this color is not what they use. The color are not the same, so it should be smoke gray, not this off black. So it should be smoke gray like this, because we are following the design. Yeah, so I think this one is better compared to what we have before. And again, this is our input. Look at the outline that is coming out there. This is not the outline that we're supposed to use. What we are supposed to use here is our primary color anytime the box is focused. So anytime the box is focused, or when it is active, the color that's supposed to be inside the box is different. So let me go back. Yeah, so this is it here. From the design, we have to use this our purple color anytime the box is active. So let me go back to the design, and this our input. We can target it. So form group, anytime the input is focus, what do we want to do? We want the outline color to be whatever color that is that. Let me check the name of the color. Okay, it is purple. So it's supposed to be this purple color that we have at the top. So anytime the input is focused, we want this line, which is the outline, to be the purple, yeah, like this. So we want it to be this one, and if you want, we can actually remove the border color, because the border color is still there. There. So the border, or we might remove the outline and just leave the border. What's going on? So border color is going to be transparent. I don't want to see any color anytime. I don't want to see any border color anytime our boxes are focused. The only thing we just want to see is the outline. So the outline is a line that covers the border. So this one is outline, not the border. So if you want to use border too, you can use it instead of using outline color. So here we can just specify the border color, and at the same time what we just do is to say that the outline, so outline should be none. So we don't want to use outline, we want to continue with our border. And if you save it, you say now instead of using outline, what it will use is the border. So we are updating the border color based on whether you are inside that box or not. So when it is focused, the box, the line there, which is the border, will change to purple. But when it is not focused, then it go back to original line that we use for our border for this line on line 103 here. So we are done with all this top. We need to work on this error box. So here inside the form group too, we have the P with the class. Yeah, we have the P. So this P, if you look at the design, when there is error, this is what is going to happen. So when there is error, as you can see the feed, it is in italics form, and at the same time it's quite small compared to what we have right now. So first of all, we need to give it a color. Do we have the color for that? Yes, it is known as light red. So we are going to call our var, this is a light red like this. So save. On the page we should have that color there. Again, we need to change our font style. So font style needs to be italics, not the normal one that is there. So font style is going to be italic, and once this one is saved, as you can see, it's going to be in italic. But there's a problem. When it's in italic, we don't have the font for that. As you can see, for the italic we only have for the 700 and we only have for the 800, and that's why it changed here. It changed the style by the time we change to, so anytime the font weight or anytime the font style is italic, it will change the font, but that's not what we want. So let's change the font weight too. So the font weight should be 400 like this, but the font we actually have there, it will still see it. So that's the problem. It will still see this because anytime there is a font style of italic, it will always use this. So let's duplicate this one too in order for this not to be doing that. So what we can do here is, so when the font weight is 400 and the font style too is italic. So when the font style is italic and the font weight is 400, we still want it to use this. But if the font weight is 800 and it's italic, this is what it's going to use. If the font weight is 700 and it's italic, this is the one is going to use, and so forth, like that. And as you can see, this thing is going to go back, but the font is not doing what it's supposed to do. So let me check the assets. We actually copy the one for the italics for the normal font. So let me expand this in regular. Okay, we actually have it. So we have popping italics. So we are the one that did not include it, and that's the reason why it's not working, because we can't be using this regular when it is in italics form. So we need to use the italic one, which is this. So when it is 400 and it's italic, it's supposed to use popping italic. And once this thing is saved, as you can see now, our design is now looking like the way we want it to be. So it is going to be in italic, and the font weight too is going to be 400. And the one that I actually mentioned down here is not needed, because by default all p tag, their font weight is 400. So this one is just waste of typing. By default all p are 400 in weight. All your h1 to h6 by default they are 700, and so forth like that. But you can change it anytime any one of them need to change. Like label 2, the font weight is always 400, but because we need it to bold, then we update the weight to 700. But by default all your normal text, they have font weight of 400, but you can update them. I don't need to do that with the p because that's what is there already. Now we have our box, but don't forget we said we want to start this our form anytime it have class error. So anytime there is a form group and there is input and there is class error, so what do you want to do? we want to use border color of this light red. So anytime there is a class error, anytime there is a class error on input, the line should change to red, because that's what we're going to be doing later on here like this. So anytime there is error on the input, that means there is a class error on the input, you always want the color to be this. The same thing with the label too. So anytime there is a class error on the label, so anytime there is class error on the label, we want it to have this error color. By now, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything because there is no class on them. But now, if I come to this label and just give it this class error now, you see that it's going to pick up the style that we mentioned there. So anytime there is class error, the color should be red, but I'm not seeing anything on it. So let me go back. We have the form group label. Then we have, oh sorry, this one can't be border color. This is wrong. It should be color because we are dealing with label. Yeah, so here now we have the red on the label, and at the same time too, going to our inputs, if you give it a class, so if you give it class, so let me use this for this one too. So if you give it class error, then the line there is going to turn to red instead of the gray. And this is what JavaScript will be doing later on based on whether there is error in our box or no error. So saving this code, going back to the page, you see that the line is going to turn to red, which is going to look like this. So when there is error, the class error will be added. When there is no error, the class error will be removed on the element. And that's what we are going to be doing later on from the JavaScript. When the user click on the button, and that button we check whether you have something or something is wrong with our input, we are going to add the necessary class on the element that needs to show to the user that they needs to fix something here, so that the user can know what to do or what is going on with the application state there. But this thing is not going to have error by default, because there is no way the user will be having error when they are visiting the page for the first time, or when they just reload the page, or when they just get to the page. There is no way to be having error. The only time they will have error is when you submit and we check what is going on with the box, and we see that something is wrong here. Then we are going to fix up or put out the necessary stuff that I need to show. The same thing too, all this error box is just for us to see the styling. For now, there is not going to be any error. So the P are going to be empty by default. So they are going to be empty by default like this, because that's the way it's supposed to be. When you get to the page for the first time, you are not going to see any error. There is no red color. But once you click on the button and we see that something is wrong with the box, then that's when the error will now start coming out based on the type of the error. If you don't put anything inside the box, this is the error we are going to output out. If we put something inside the box and it is wrong, this is the type of the error that is going to come outside, because there is no way day will be 98. You know that day is between 1 to 31st, and again too, it's still depending on the month. But you are dealing with February now. You know, February did not get to 30. The highest you get for February is 29, and again too, it has some year that you can put 29 there. So we are going to do all those checking later on, and we put the correct message. Again too, there is no way month will be 14. The highest month you can get is 12. So if you now put less than 1 or you put more than 12, you know that we need to show error. Again too, whatever year you want to put must be less than the current year. So which means, since we are in 2025, the year you have to put here have to be 2024, or like that. The year can't be the same year that we are currently in, because that means you are still not up to a year. So why do you want to calculate your year when you are not up to a year? So whatever year you want to put must be less than whatever the current year, and the current year right now is 2025. So we need to do all those checking later on. And when you are inputting the year too, it must be false value. So those are the things that you check. Your application, most of the time, where you be spending your time is validation, because you want your application to work irrespective of whatever the user is doing on your site there. So whether they input the correct data or they input the wrong data, you still want your application to work. And that's the reason if you go to any mobile application or any site, even if you input the wrong stuff or there is no network, the thing will still tell you and the application will still function properly, because the error you get will inform you that okay, there is no network or there is something wrong with the value you are imputing. The application will still work, not that the thing will crash when you input wrong data. And that's where you spend most of your time, because you want your application to be reliable. Even when the user puts the wrong data, you still want to inform them what you are expecting there or what they are supposed to do, and so forth like that. So that's the reason why we have this P to output message based on what is going to be going on. And that's the reason why we're going to be spending a lot of time on the JavaScript part, because we need to handle a lot of cases that can happen. So based on the application that you have, you check what are the stuff the user can do that can break your application. So those things that can break your application, you need to handle them, so that when the application is running and when the user inputs wrong stuff, it will not break or the application will not crash. That's it. Because now, if you go and put nonsense stuff there that the JavaScript cannot do, it will crash your application and the user will start complaining that what is going on, the application is not working. We open your app and it started. So you don't want the user to keep complaining about your application. You want to give them what is going on. Even though they input the wrong stuff, you need to tell them what they are doing wrong so that they can fix it and get the output that they are expecting from your application there. So we are done with the styling. For the box at the top, we need to handle the second section, which is where we have this button, and this is the style that we need to work on. So desktop, this is how it's going to look like. It's only the one that have different design from desktop and mobile. And on the mobile, we need to make sure that the button is placed at the center like this. So how do we do something in this way? You know that we can achieve this by using positioning, because with the help of positioning, you can move your element on top of each other in a container. And that's the reason why you see that inside this second section, inside this I have this second section, which is with the class action, and I'm putting this HR and this button inside them, so that we can position this one as relative, and inside it we'll be able to move the button anywhere we want inside it like that. So the first thing we need to do is by going back into our style. So we need to display it as flex because we need it later on when we're on the big screen. Then after displaying as flex like this, I want to move everything to center, or like vertically they are supposed to be at the center. So save this in and you see that they are going to be side by side on the page like that. And as you can see, our HR, I can't see it again. Why? Because it's not having the width that it's supposed to have. So inside the action, we have HR. What is actually there is we can give it this border 1 pixel solid red like this, so that we can see where is our HR on the page. And once this thing is bad, as you can see, the HR is somewhere here, which is like a dot. So what we can do here is just to give it width of 100% like this, so that we can have the line coming out. As you can see, before the stuff did not have any width, because this we display the parent as flex, so it did not have any definite width, so it's kind of a tiny. So we need to give it a width to cover up whatever that is there. Or instead of us using it like this, what we can do is to do flex 1. So take the remaining space that is left in the parent whenever the box, which is this our button, is done taking its own space. This is how it's supposed to look like on desktop, not mobile. So we need to change some stuff on our button. So the first thing we need to do is to position this one as relative, so that we can position the button as absolute on top of the stuff there. So we are going to position it as relative. Then from there, we can now target our button. So inside it, what is the width and the height? I don't know, but I'm going to just use some random value for the height there. So the height of this box is going to be 2 rem for now. The width is going to be 2 rem. Why? because we want it to be rounded. So the border radius is going to be 50%. So the background is going to be our purple. So it's going to be our purple like this. Then the border is going to be none. We don't want any line around you can see right now it have this black line around the button. We don't want that. So what we need to do is to remove the border, and as you can see right now we have it, but this width and height is too small, so I'm going to change it maybe to around this 4 rem here just to increase the button. Yeah, so I think this one too is too big, so let me use 3 to do it like this. And again, the image that is inside it, we need to resize the image. So the action, the button that we have there, so there's an image. So this thing should have, it shouldn't take the all the weight that is here. It shouldn't take all the weight, so it should be 90%. The height too should be 90, or let's just say the weight should be 90%, like that. So inside this button, we are going to display it as flex so that we can move whatever it that is inside it to the center. Display it as flex, AIC, align item center, justify content center. So whatever that is inside it will always be at the center. No matter the size, it will always go to the center of it, like that. And I think this 80% too, let me use 80% because this button is it not what we have. So let me check. Inside, yes, we have the image, and yeah, so I think it's okay like this. So the next thing we need to do is to move it to the center. You can't just move it to the center and this line will be at the edge. It's not possible. So what you can do is to break this line into two. Then you move the stuff to the other side and do some stuff. But you don't want to do too much of work. What we can do here is to position it. So one way of doing it here without us using two lines is by positioning it as absolute. And once you position it as absolute, you see that it will be removed from its parent. What we can do here now is start to position it anywhere we want. So the top is going to be 50%, the right or the left rather, the left is going to be 50%. Then we are going to transform it, which is going to be translate. And what does it mean? We can 50% minus 50%. So which means this thing is going to be perfectly centered in the box or inside the container that we position as a relative. So any one of them that you position as relative, the parent, it's going to go from the top, go down, but you know that it's the top that we are moving down, not the center. So we need to return it back so that everything can display correctly the way it's supposed to be. And as you can see right now, we have the button at the center of its parent there. If we don't apply this transform, this thing will not work correctly. As you can see, we are only moving left and top. So we need to transform it back so that the 50 of that top will be replaced by this minus 50. So plus 50 minus 50, that's 0. And the two of them will meet at the center, which is going to be perfectly centered inside the box. This is not the line. I'm just using that red. So I'm going to replace it with the correct line. I think it's this light gray. I don't know. So let me try it. So var, we have the light gray. So save. And there we should have the line just like the way it is here, like that. So we have this button, and once we click on it, as you can see, it's going to trigger the font submission, which we need to undo later on. But this is for the mobile. We need to undo the button when it is on the desktop. So we are currently on the mobile. So when we get to tablet, as you can see, there is enough space. We're supposed to move the button back to this area. So what we just need to do is to remove that positioning that we put there. So we can now talk to this by using our media query. So here at media, so at media screen, and so let me disable this. So and our mean width of 768. So once we get to this base screen, what do we want to do? So the action, the button that is there, the position that we applied before should just be initial. So whatever that used to be there before just go back. What used to be there by default is static. So initial, go back to the way it used to behave. And as you can see right now, the stuff has changed. But we are using this transform. So transform to, I want to remove it because I don't want this thing to transform at all, which is going to be none. So don't transform anything so that we can have it the way it's supposed to be, because this transform here is shifting your element, and since we are not positioning again, all this top and left will not work, because they only work when you are dealing with the position property apart from static. And this side here that I use initial is just the same thing I just saying static, because that's what initial means, whatever that used to be there by default. Before you start doing the changes to this stuff, what do you used to have there, or what is the default value there before? That's what we call initial. So it's going to go back to whatever this. If you don't know the value that used to be there before, just use initial. But if you know what used to be there before or what you need, you put it like this. Both of them are going to do the same thing, because static will not work with your top left, and since the top left is not working, then it's not going to be at the center. And this transform that we use here to make sure that the box is perfectly centered here, we are removing it here too, because if you don't remove it, transform will work, because it doesn't work with position. Transform will work by default, it doesn't work with position. So we need to remove it by using transform none, so that this thing can be positioned correctly when we are on a screen bigger or equal to 768. So if you go less, it's going to be at the center, but if you go more, then it's going to be like this. And I think we can actually add more spacing to this box when we are on small screen. So this action, we want to apply a padding block, which is going to be the padding top and bottom. So I want to use 2 rem so that we can have enough space when we are on a small screen. As you can see, the top is 2, the bottom is 2, but it's too much. So for the top, I want to use 1 rem. For the bottom, I want to use 1.5 rem, because padding block, if you give it one value, it will use it for the top and bottom. But if you give it 2 value, then it will use the first one for the top, the second one for the bottom, like that. So save, as you can see, we have more space at the bottom, but it's not that much at the top. But I don't want that spacing when we're on the big screen. You can see it's adding more spacing on the desktop, so we can remove it by talking to our action again when we get to a bigger screen from tablet. So the padding block here now is going to be 0. So padding block is going to be 0 when we get to a bigger screen. So just use the normal space that used to be there. Don't increase the padding. So we only want to increase the padding of top and bottom when we are on small screen. But once we get to a bigger screen, as you can see, there is no space there. But on small screen, because we are doing this thing, so we need to add extra space so that it can accommodate what we have here, like that. So, and I think something is missing with here, because I can see the box is actually bold. The text inside the box is bold, but currently our box is not like that. So we need to increase the stuff. So by going back into our form input, we want to change the font weight. So the font weight is going to be 800, because it's supposed to be bold. So it should be 800. Yeah. So it's supposed to be bold like this. So removing this, as you can see, we have our box, and as you can see, the input is getting expanded based on the container. So if the container is big, it will always be 100% of whatever we have inside a box. So we have the styling for the mobile, and at the same time we have the styling for desktop. So on mobile, the button will be at the center, but once we get to a bigger screen, there the button is going to go to the right. But why is it not going to the right? It's because I increase or zoom out my browser, zoom in my browser. But if I zoom out, you see that everything will go back to the normal size, because I'm using a big screen now to share. So I need to increase this stuff so that we can see it properly. So we have this box, we have this box for months, we have this box for year. So it's not less for us now to undo the box, whatever stuff that the user is inputting inside the box. And based on what they input here, if it is correct, we are going to update all these dot that we have there with the correct stuff there. So for example, if you put 01, or if you just put 0, what today is it? Today is 03, so we put 02 and we put 2000, what's that? 2000 and or 2024, like this. So what we're supposed to get here is 1 year, 0 month, and 0 day, because the day is matching. So we need to make sure that here is going to tell us that the year is 1 year, this one is 0 months, and 0 days. But if this thing is maybe around this 6, and here you have maybe 2021, this one too, as you can see, is not even 2021 to 2025 here. We'll be thinking though, so this is going to be, so we'll be thinking it's supposed to be 4, but it's not 4, because this is month of 6. We are currently in 2, so it's not up to that year. So here it's supposed to be 3 years, some months, and some days are there based on what you have here. But how do we do all this thing? We need to add JavaScript in order for us to have this interaction. So, and what type of the stuff we need to do? We need to add events to our form, because now if I click on this button, as you can see, it's going to submit the form. And once you submit the form, it will reload the page, which is not what we want. So we want to hijack the submission of the form from the browser so that we can get what is inside the box and we undo the necessary action that needs to go on here. So the first thing we need to do is to include our JavaScript, which we already know how to do it. So we can use our script, and the script we want to use is the one with the source. So what are we connecting to? We want to connect to index.js. And if everything is working correctly inside our index.js, we can use our console.log to see that our JavaScript has been connected successfully. So here we can just say welcome to JS. So save. If you can see this thing in the console, it means this thing is working correctly. And as you can see, we have the message printed out there on the console. So what we need to do now is to target the elements that we want to add event on. You see the same thing that we normally do before. Target the element you want, and from there you add event. When that event occur, you do something based on what you want there like that. So here, what we need to do is to target the form that we have on the page. So const form here, or I can just complete form elements, or just form in general. So this is going to be the document query selector like this. What are we looking for? We are looking for form, because that's the only one we have on the page. And we can console log out this thing to see whether we are getting the form or not. So save it. If you get null here, it means you are not targeting the stuff correctly. But if you get the element, as you can see here, we have the form, which is having this input of day, input of month, and input of year, which we can use this index to get any of the value that we need from them. So this is all what we want to do. We want to add event listener. So form, then add event listener. What type of event we want to add on the form is submit. So when the form is submit, there we want to do something. So we can get information about the form or the event that occurs. So I'm going to receive it here. And one of the stuff, or one of the goodies, or one of the functionality that we have on this event is prevent default. And what does this thing going to do? I've talked about it before. Whatever stuff that the browser used to do anytime this event occur, we are talking to it that it shouldn't do that stuff at all. So whatever this thing used to do before, it shouldn't do it at all. So we want this thing to stop whatever it used to do. And based on that, we can use it to get our day input. So the day input value, or the let's just say day input, it's going to be this form at 0. So the other one is going to be the month input. So this is going to be form at 1, And lastly, the one we need is going to be the year input, and this one is going to be gotten from the form at index 2 based on what we have here. Index 0 will give us the input because form knows all the control that you put under it, and it will arrange them based on the way you arrange it on the page. So since this is our first input that we have there, so under this side, as you can see, this is our first input, so that is going to be the first one. This is the second one that it can find under the form. This is the third one, and so forth like that. So it's going to put all its control by arranging them like this. But if you want to select them too directly yourself, you can do that by targeting them on the page. But since the input have access to them, I can get it from the input, or you target them just like the way we target the form. So here now, we can actually get the value inside each one of them. So const day input value is going to be this day input then dot value. This is how we are going to get the value, or we can just set it into this, or let's just leave it like that, or set it to this empty value if it is not there. So check it, if it is there, take it. If it is not there, then use this empty one. And the same thing too is what I'm going to do for the other one like this. So for the other one, it's not going to be day, it's going to be so for this one should be months, and this one should be year. This one is giving us the input, not the value. But this one here, we are getting the value, and based on all this value, you can do whatever you want. For example, here you can just input whatever that the user input there. So input value, month input value, and the year input value like this. And we can actually console log out the other one too. So the date input value, or no. So here remove all this so that you can see the difference. So these are the one down are the value, the one at the top is the actual element that we are targeting. So the first one is targeting the day input, this one is targeting the month input, this one is targeting the year input. While all these three are now targeting the value inside the box. So if you click on submit now, the browser is not going to handle the submission again. And as you can see, so day input is targeting the input. So all this one is giving us the input, while the day input value, month input value, and year input value is giving us whatever the user type inside a box. And now, as you can see, it is empty. And that's this one I'm using this all year. So this is all. Is either this one or this one here. That's what it's doing. So if this one is not there, it will use this empty string like this. But now if I put something there, maybe 12 for the day. So click again. As you can see, the day is having value. Why the other one are not having value? Because we did not input anything. But this button is not showing that it is something that is clickable. That's wrong. User experience. So where is our button? Yeah. So the button is supposed to have cursor of pointer, because it's supposed to show that it is something that is clickable. So save, and going back to the page, our button now should be. And again too, when it is over, I want the color to be something else, because on the design that we have here, when you hover on the box, as you can see, the color changes to black. So we need to do that too, so that it gives this experience that we are expecting there. So anytime this action, the button, it is over, so the background is going to be that our of black like this. So this is what we're supposed to use anytime the button is over. So when the button is over, we don't want it to use this color again. It's still loading. What's going on? Save. So yeah, so when it is over, we want it to change, but it's changing fast, so we can transition the background. So transition the background, we want it to take 0.5 seconds to change. So from this purple to black, or from black to purple, anytime it's changing that background, we want it to take 0. But it's supposed to be background color. Yeah, so as you can see now, the changing of the color is taking 0.5 seconds. Or if you want to see it clearly, you can use 2 seconds, which is really long. So to change it, can you see To change from one color to another one, it will be taking 2 seconds, which is wrong. 2 seconds is really much. So the maximum you always use most of the time is this 0.5 seconds, which means half a second. So it will change instantly. It will be fast, but you can see that the color is switching from one to another. Another is just changing instantly at the end like that. So we have 12, we have 4, and here we have 1990 like this. So if you click on the box, as you can see, we are able to get a value inside the day. We're going to get a value inside this one, and we're able to get this one like that. But instead of me using this empty stuff, since we know that this thing is not going to is always going to be number, if they are not available, just use 0 for them like this. So, and again, we want to, don't forget last time the user can actually input space in between all this stuff. So if I click enter now, as you can see, there's a space between 12 and 5. We don't want anything like this. Later on, we are going to see how we can undo all these things. Or the user did not even type anything. They just put empty space. It will still work. When you press, as you can see here, it's giving us this empty space that we don't want. So the first thing we need to do is to trim all these things. And once we trim it, then it will return the number for the value. But instead of me doing it for each one of them, we can create a function that is going to do this thing for us. We started introducing, so we can create a function. And what is the function? The function is going to be clean input value. So anytime you give it any value, that value it will clean it. And what is that clean going to do? It will remove all the spacing at the edge, and it will convert whatever that you pass into it as number there like that, and it will return it back to you if there is a value. If there is no value, it will return 0 back to you. But if there is value, then it will return the stuff like that. So what we want to do, our function, what it's going to do is to just return the clean data. So we can just say clean, so const cleaned, so cleaned value here is going to be, do we have value? So the value, we trim it like this, and after we trim it, we want to convert it to number. But if the thing is not there, just put 0. And after this one is done with whatever it needs to do, what do? We return the cleaned value. So what this thing will do is that whatever value you pass into it, it will trim it first to remove the space at the edge. But after removing the space, it will check, do you have anything left there? If there is something there, it will return it. But if there is nothing there, what it will do is to return 0 back to whoever called the stuff. So copying this one, instead of us using it like this, we can just pass this our clean value. So let me expand this in very well. So clean it. So just remove this one like this and pass it. Again, 2, pass it into this one and clean this one too by closing the bracket. Do the same thing for the last. And again, later on, anytime we need to make changes to how all these values are being passed, we just need to come here, make the changes. We don't need to start doing it again on these 3 lines there. So we are using our own function now that we created by ourselves. So we have this function, clean input. Give it the value you give to it, convert it to number. Of converting it to number, trim all the edge that is here. Then after trimming, checking whether it's returning true or false. If it's returning true, return that value. If it's not, then return 0, which is still going to convert it to 0, and it will return this thing back to us. So saving this stuff, going back to the page that we have there. So clean this, put 25 here and 1993. Press enter. As you can see, it cleaned our value. Even if you put some space here, press enter again. As you can see, it's still always going to be 20. But now if you don't put anything and you only put space and you press enter and go there, you see that what we have is just 0 because it's clean it, and since it's after they trim the stuff, you see that it's just empty. So it will just return 0 back to us. So in our next class here, we are going to focus more on how we can start adding validation on our box. So in our next class, we start adding validation based on this clean data that we have there, like that. So that's going to be all for today there. So let me stop recording.